So let's start with state of play with Brexit. How optimistic are you that there is going to be a free trade agreement to your satisfaction between Ireland and the UK?
Well, there's lots of bridges that need to be crossed before we get to that point. In December, a meeting of the European Council will be taking place, and Ireland, as a member of the EU team, will be deciding if enough progress has been made on the first set of issues to allow progress to be made to then have a discussion about the future trading policy between the UK and the EU. What we want is a trading policy and a customs policy that's as close as is possible to where we are at the moment. But in order for that to happen, matters in relation to financial settlement, Northern Ireland and so on, need to be in a good state before that can happen first.
And you mentioned financial settlement. Financial services obviously is something that's very much on the minds of a lot of people on Wall Street and the City of London. How does financial services play into these discussions, and what does success look like in that regard?
Well, success for Europe overall looks like Europe continuing to be competitive from a global financial services point of view. Obviously, international banks and investors at the moment are reassessing where they want to keep their investment, their jobs and their services. Whether they want to retain that in London, given what is happening with Brexit. It is a matter for companies to decide, but overall, we want to see Europe continue to be competitive in that area. And obviously, from an Irish point of view, we're using this as an opportunity to tell those companies the opportunities that Ireland offers, because we already have a very successful financial services sector in our country, and we want to see that built further.
And how much success are you having so far in convincing people to relocate, some, as you said, some jobs, some investments to Dublin or other places in Ireland?
Well, we've already had some significant successes to date. For example, JP Morgan have now indicated that they are going to be significantly increasing the operation that they have in Dublin. Bank of America have also indicated that they will continue to see Dublin as being a very, very important location for services and businesses that they have into Europe. We'd rather not be in this position. We'd rather be in the position of the UK remaining within the European Union. But all that being said, we do need to look at what opportunities emerge for Ireland from a financial services point of view. But overall, we want to see Europe remain competitive and strong in a very important sector.
And when you think about how Ireland could benefit, what numbers are you sort of modeling out? I mean, are we talking about thousands, tens of thousands of jobs that could move, especially in the financial sector, to Ireland?
Overall, Brexit will pose challenges to the Irish economy. We have already revised our growth forecasts for the next number of years downwards to take account of the effect of Brexit. All that being said, if we look at where we are at the moment, our economy will grow by around 4% this year, around 3.5% this year. We believe we could move to full employment next year. In terms of opportunities, we would have between 25 and 30,000 people, for example, associated with financial services in Ireland at the moment. That's a figure that we believe can grow more. But clearly companies at the moment need to assess where they want to move to and need to assess what kind of transitionary period, for example, could be in place between the UK and the EU.
And what about the European Banking Authority? That's been something that's been mentioned as Dublin's been mentioned as a possible relocation for that institution.
Yeah, Dublin and Ireland are pitching for the European Banking Authority to move to Dublin. We're doing that because of the strengths that we have in financial services at the moment, and also because the legal environment that we have here in Dublin matches very well with what is currently there in London. So it would offer the opportunity for that presence, that work, and potentially those people to move seamlessly into Dublin, to allow continuity of regulation from a European capital city that already has a very significant financial services sector there. And that's really the case that we're putting.
Pretty confident you can win that?
I'm confident we're going to put a very, very good case forward. But as in any election, I think if you're to indicate a confidence, you're halfway there to losing us. We've got a good case. We're confident we can put a good case forward. But it's up to our colleagues and friends in other EU member states to decide how they want to vote.
Your government still holds significant stakes in some of the big Irish banks. You've sold down a little bit. What can we expect to see going forward? Do you expect to sell more shares in order to get some cash for the
Well,
government?
you're correct. We've made the decision now to recently dispose of a significant share in Allied Irish Bank. It was a very, very significant disposal and very successful. One of the very largest of its kind to take place in Europe now for many, many years. We're seeing all of our Irish banks. We're seeing Allied Irish Bank, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB, which are the three banks that we have shares in. We're seeing all their trading performances begin to improve. We're seeing their balance sheets now really move back into an era of normality, given all the years of difficulty that we did have. We'll assess market conditions for each of our banks to decide what is the right time for each of those banks. But in the very long term, we want to be in a situation where Irish banks are owned and financed privately, because obviously that will give them the best opportunity to get the funding and support they need to lend to Irish businesses and also take advantage of opportunities they face.
Potential to see some more sales in 2018, do you think?
Well, look, we have to look at market conditions for all of them. At this point in time, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to indicate potential timings for either of those banks. They're all in a position where their progress, their performance is very steadily improving, and we'll evaluate for each of those banks what might be the right decision to take.
You have been in Washington this week while you've been here in the United States. Obviously, trade is very much on the minds of lots of folks down there and lots of folks back home. For you, what do you take away from those discussions in terms of how the U.S. approach to trade may affect Ireland in the near and midterm?
Well, first and foremost, we've been very clear as we've been meeting members of President Trump's administration, we've been meeting members of the House of Representatives and the Senate, that decisions in relation to American trade policy or American tax policy, of course, are decisions for the American people and for those they elect, and we respect that. But as I've been travelling here, the point that I've been making is that trade, when done well, when done in a regulated environment, as for example the EU can do, is trade that can be genuinely mutually beneficial. So the example I've been given is Ireland. Many of your American viewers may be aware that American companies in Ireland employ 150,000 people. What I think people are less aware of is that Irish companies in America employ approximately 100,000 people. And it's a very good example of how investment and trade flows can be beneficial for both countries. And in the debate that's now underway in relation to globalisation and trade, of course there's issues that we all want to change and want to improve. But the kind of relationship that we have between Ireland and America shows how trade flows, I think, can be beneficial.
And do you worry at all about a change, or a significant change in corporate tax policy and how that may affect some of the companies that...
It's something that we are monitoring. Of course, as I said a moment ago, it's a decision for American politicians to decide how they see fit. If I look at where we are from an Irish point of view, we're very confident that the business model and the broad corporate tax policy that we have is and will continue to be competitive. If we look at the decisions that your government may make in relation to its top line rate, it may make in relation to where it taxes profits, they're decisions you'll make, but we're confident that the system that we have, our young workforce and educated workforce, we're about to become the only English-speaking member of the European Union. All of those factors will allow Ireland to continue to be competitive in the face of any decisions that may be made.